Do I have sound? Oh, I do. Good morning and welcome. I am so excited to be here speaking with you today. I've prepared two different but related talks. I gave one at the 9 o'clock. This will be kind of like the second half of the first talk, if you were here. So Centers for Spiritual Living is an organization that is working to make the world a better place, making the world a place that works for all. And so in their work to do this, they have put out to us an invitation for centers to join together in speaking on the same topics on the same Sundays, so that we might blend our voices in a more powerful way for the planet. And so today's topic that was offered is creating your tomorrows today. And I looked at that and I said, yay, that's easy, because that's what we're always doing. We're always doing that. It's easy to talk about how that happens, right? So at 9 o'clock, I talked about the divine principle of cause and effect, and in several of the forms that it shows up, and how we can consciously use that in our lives, in our thoughts, our words, and our actions, to make best use of the principles of science of mind and spirit that we teach here. I talked about how we can forget sometimes and get stuck in the past. And when we do that, we're creating more of the same that we had in the past. And I talked a little bit about when we remember to be present, letting go of the past, letting the past be the past, and looking to truth as our guidance. What happens then? We can create a beautiful future when we remember to do that, no matter what our past looked like. So in this service, I'm going to talk about how we can consciously use our practice, our conscious practice of faith, to address richness and depth as we consciously create our tomorrows today. So as I begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ernest Holmes, our founder. He spent a lifetime studying philosophies and religious teachings. Early in his life, he came out of Christian Science, and so he studied first the teachings of the master teacher Jesus. And then in his earlier adulthood, he began to read Greek philosophy of Plotinus and used a lot of that from way back. So this philosophy is really a perennial wisdom. It's drawn from all kinds of traditions. So as he grew a little bit beyond that age and on into his maybe 30s and 40s, he began reaching, actually it was his late 20s, he began reading Christian Larson. And Fenwick Holmes, his brother, has stated that one of Christian Larson's books actually pivoted Ernest on a dime from the Christian Science teaching to the beginnings of teaching, writing, creating, and teaching science of mind. And so he joined to that mental science teacher, Christian Larson. Thomas Troward was a huge influence for Ernest Holmes. And so when you read Thomas Troward's work and Ernest Holmes' work, you can see how they melded together. And then he became interested in the philosophical essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that began to kind of meld into this philosophy that was being created. And then a little bit later in his life, and as her last student, Ernest Holmes studied under high mystic Emma Curtis Hopkins. Then finally, at the very end of his life, they found that he had been doing journaling, writing about Sri Aurobindo. He had been reading the deep Eastern teachings of Sri Aurobindo. And he had written that the reason he had been moved to do that is because he wanted to know that truth was truth. He said that if this is really truth, it's going to be the same, East and West. And he found that in Sri Aurobindo, an example of how this is truth, and it is present in all cultures, in all times, for all people. So thanks to his life's work, we have the science of mind and spirit as our philosophy for our organization and for the center. And this is the philosophy that we teach, and we endeavor to practice at all times, whenever possible. So I'm going to be talking about, we have these two arms of God in Science of Mind. We have the law, which I spoke about at 9 o'clock. And then we have the love of God, which Will so eloquently spoke about. And so I'm going to talk in this service about the love of God and how we can use that in our daily practice to uplift our lives. Before we jump into love, we need to define those terms because we're not talking about an emotional love when we say love. We're talking about Spirit's desire to express itself in, through, and as all of creation. That is how Science of Mind defines love. So when we say love, don't think about I love my spouse, I love my dog, I love pizza or ice cream. Think about this infinite wisdom, this infinite power that wants to express itself, and so it does, as each one of us and as all that we see and all that we don't see. So in addition to that love, there's another term we need to define for our talk today, and that would be faith, so that we have some common ground as to what we mean by faith. The Science of Mind textbook defines it this way. Faith is a mental attitude so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. Faith is complete when it is both a conscious and a subconscious acceptance. Faith may be consciously generated. We can choose to generate faith. In spiritual terminology, faith means a belief in the presence of an invisible principle and a law which directly and specifically responds to us. So that's the definition that we're going to be working with today. I want to add something to that in saying that faith is an attitude held not just by the mental power of the brain, but also the thinking, feeling, knowing power of the heart. So faith is complete when it melds these two, the brain, the heart, the ability to analyze, to think, to weigh out, the ability to feel and to know. So remember that Reverend Sue a couple weeks ago talked about the heart as having a mind of its own. If you were here for that talk, we can call it the heart mind. It consists of over 40,000 specialized cells, sensory neurons of its own. These neurons can think, they can remember, they can learn, independent of our brain. Science is now backing these things up. So faith is complete when both the heart and the brain are engaged. Modern science terminology would say that they are in harmonious coherence with each other. So why are we defining both faith and love? That's the question. Because as love is God's desire to express itself through all of its creation, and always for the highest expression of good for all of us, we can either experience those highest benefits by placing our faith in love as our truth, or we can place our faith in something else, like fear or limitation. It's our choice. We have this choice. But we're going to get a very, very different result depending on which way we direct our faith. So it's not whether or not we have faith. We all have 100% faith all the time and every moment. It's where do we choose to place our faith? Where do we direct it? Do I have faith in God as love, available, and always working in my life in every moment of every day? Or do I have faith in Murphy's Law, that if there's something that can go wrong, it will? That's a place you can put your faith. That's big in our culture. I heard a lot of that growing up, not just in my home, but just all around me. So this has shown up, this Murphy's Law thing, in a number of ways in my life. Has anyone heard this one? The minute you get some extra money put away in the bank, something's going to come up to take that money right back out. Anybody heard that one? The universe as a trickster. Yeah. So, how about faith as we look at the world around us right now? How about faith that there's more bad going on in the world than good? Easy to believe sometimes, huh? But I don't think evolution could actually be happening if that was true, right? Doesn't evolution mean growth and expansion and goodness? How about placing faith in God as absolute abundance? Don't we have plenty of evidence for that too? Look out at nature. Look at the sky, the stars. Look at the beach, all the sand. Look in our own homes and all of the abundance that we each have, just living in this country. Or do I let the balance of my checking account convince me otherwise? Convince me that there must be lack and limitation. So this is my choice. And the programming is pretty deep. It takes mindful practice, daily practice, and conscious awareness, and a willingness to claim and know truth in the face of challenging appearances. So the law of faith works with the law of love to maintain a balance and a harmony in the universe. Both are required. Both are required. And so Ernest Holmes wrote our Declaration of Principles, also known as What We Believe, for the first issue of Science of Mind magazine, published in 1927. I put a copy of it in your program in case you would, it's purple, in case you would want to take that home with you. And on the back of that, so I don't forget to tell you, a set of questions for contemplation, that's your homework. And I always give homework, ask my students. And the reading from this morning is also in there. But I'd like to take a moment to read this with you. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. That means that its infinite nature, it can't ever get used up. There's no way to use it up. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. That's pretty big for number one, right? We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. Each of us is a version of God in form. Every one of us. Yes, that one too. No matter which one it is. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. So our soul, each one of us has one, according to our philosophy, has no beginning and no ending. It just is. It has forever been, it will always be. We believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. So for us, both heaven and hell are states of mind. We create it. It's up to us. I'd rather have heaven myself. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. Isn't that great news? We have a guarantee. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. Any one of us. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. We're not only surrounded by it, we're filled with it, we're swimming in it. We believe in the healing of the sick and control of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. And we believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny. For we understand that life is all of God, nothing left out. Pretty powerful words, don't you think? That's what we stand for. What if we placed our faith in these statements? What if we did that? Took them as our guiding principles for our daily lives. That's what this church is here for. That's what we're inviting everyone who walks through the door to do. So this center, this spiritual home, provides opportunities for spiritual support and growth so that each of us might create a more spiritually fulfilling life. And we do that for our tomorrows by what we do, think, feel today. Do you know we have a vision? The center has a vision. I'm going to share that with you. The Center for Spiritual Living Reading is here to inspire and empower people to live spiritually fulfilling lives. That's our vision. And we have a mission and a purpose as well. Our mission and our purpose is to be a welcoming and inclusive spiritual community, teaching and living the universal principles of science of mind and spirit, to be the change we know is possible for the world. Not just to talk about it, but to be it. Did you have any idea that you were part of something this amazing? This powerful? This is what we're here for. This is what we stand for in this community. This is what our organization stands for in the world. This is why I'm called to ministry. This. So how do we each make the best use of this amazing resource that we call the Center for Spiritual Living in Reading? I can only share with you what I do, and I'll be brief, because my 10 minutes just went up. I begin by doing my spiritual work every day, without fail. No excuses. That's what I do. I do it by gently supporting and inviting each one who crosses my path to do the same in support of their own growth and their own development. Because we can't do it for anyone, right? None of us can. I also continue to learn. I read on my own, I take classes, I interact with other people, I share ideas. This is one of the places where most of my growth has happened, is in classes. I'm still engaging in classes. I can't see myself ever not being engaged in that way. This feeds my mind with more expanded ideas that I then can allow to trickle down through meditation into my heart to become part of me so that I can embody this stuff. I expose myself to positive music and only positive music. This is what I do. Just speaking for me. Positive media. Positive people. Hang out here a lot. Positive activities. Again, I hang out here a lot. So, In my practice, I'm guided by the words of Emma Curtis Hopkins. She says that there are 3 ways of dealing with the principles announced in truth. There is the deep thinking which the mind exercises while contemplating them. There is the speaking them forth, which we do not hesitate to do. There is careful recording of them, which is writing down what we know of them. The next is living them, which we are sure to do if we think, speak, and write them. It is by faithfully doing all these things with spiritual doctrine that we accomplish the works of the Spirit. This powerful teacher understood that by choosing to consciously practice these principles in our thought, word, and deed, in every possible area of our lives, that we are better for it. That our lives are better, our families are better off, our relationships are more solid, our world is a better place. It's our greatest gift, and the one thing beyond all others that makes us fully human is our power of choice, conscious choice. The German poet Goethe wrote, choose well. Your choice is brief and yet endless. Your choice is brief and yet endless. What does this mean? It means that the choice is ever before us. For the negativity of the world seems very real and very powerful until we meet it with truth. We can listen to our own words, both out loud and in the quiet of our minds. Our words give us away, don't they? They show where we place our faith. Emma continues, our words along the nature of our faith make our faith a working principle. The waters of a river might be walled up into a great basin, but if a channel is made for that water, it flows down the lands and makes them fruitful. Thus, our words are the outlet of our faith. Our words in the silence of our mind are as potent for good as our spoken, audible words. You will remember that Napoleon talked much of what he would do in case of defeat. So his defeat came at Waterloo. So there's a fine line between being prepared and responsible for potential challenges that may arise in the world, in our lives, and giving too much energy and attention to what we would do if something goes wrong. It's a fine line. We have to be aware, we have to be responsible. And yet where we place our attention, it grows and expands. So forever and always, the law is at work. Ernest Holmes says to us, ignorance of the law excuses no one from its effects. It's easier to see in the law of mathematics, where if we add 3 and 5 and we get 10, our checkbook very shortly tells us that something is off, right? So that's the good news and the bad news. The law is always at work. That's what I was told. But you know what? I have a secret. I believe my secret is that there isn't any bad news. There really isn't any bad news. There's a fine line, and there isn't any bad news. I'm looking for my page, and it's here. There we are. Yoo-hoo! Okay. So this is where the rubber meets the road for me. Here's how my understanding of God as love can benefit my life. Through my practice of faith in God's goodness and loving nature. I begin by asking myself a few questions to either start or reset my journey. Because sometimes we can get, I've been here 26 years now, and it's like, oh, okay, I've heard this before. Yeah, I know. Okay, but am I living it? So this is what I go back to for myself. Am I living it? Through my practice of faith in God's goodness and loving nature, I begin to ask myself these questions. First question is, isn't this going to be hard? To pay attention to my thoughts all the time, every minute? To pay attention to every word that comes out of my mouth? To pay attention to how I perceive What's before me? That sounds too hard. Are you ready? Okay, another warning coming up here. Whether it's hard or not is also a choice. This beautiful woman right over here, our Reverend Mary, was the first one to tell me, what would it look like if it was easy? No one had ever asked me that question before. And I'm making use of that question every day of my life. As I go to school and serve here and do all that I'm just called to do from a place of love and service, it's still a lot. And so every morning I ask myself, what would today look like if it was easy? So that's a choice that we make. It's open to my interpretation. My life story is nothing but my interpretation. Does it demand my constant attention? Well, yeah, of course. Is it worth my attention and my mindfulness? I can't think of anything that's more worthy of my attention and my mindfulness. It's my life, right? Okay, it can be easy. Prove it, you say. Here's my proof. Through these practices, wherever I may be in this moment, I can raise my consciousness. I can increase my awareness. But there's no way for me to convince you of the power of these practices. We each have to find out for ourselves. So go on. I dare you. I dare you. See if your life doesn't continue to change for the better forever. Oh, did I forget to tell you this is an endless process? Not one of us here is there, wherever there is. I've heard people say there's no there. So it just goes on forever. And that's the good news, because there is no bad news, remember? As my conscious awareness grows, my perceptions and interpretations of the events in my life, past and present, change. I like to think of this as wisdom. When I give time and attention to spiritual pursuits, I'm connecting with the delight of living fully. I'm connecting with the high wisdom and the deepest compassion, and my consciousness continues to grow and expand, and my perceptions and my interpretations shift even more until I can see good. I can see a blessing in every aspect of my life, in every condition, in every person, no matter what, all the time. Doesn't this sound like a worthy pursuit? And I give thanks for all of it, no matter what it looks like, because without all of it, I wouldn't be here right now. I can't imagine what my tomorrows would be like without today's awareness. I can't imagine who I would be without every single experience that I've had in my life. The ones that I call good, the ones that I call bad. The book of Psalms tells us to delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. The most common metaphysical interpretation for Lord, by the way, is law. Another interpretation is Father, Mother, God within. So this is saying, delight yourself in the loving and lawful presence of God, and it will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the loving and lawful presence of God. Trust it, for it is forever acting. And again in the Psalms, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait on, not wait for the Lord to shower it down on you. Wait on, serve, be in service to, give attention to. And the root of the word courage means wholeness of heart. So serving the loving and lawful presence of God, give it your attention and be wholehearted, and it will strengthen your faith and your knowing. I can think of no better way to consciously create my tomorrows today. I hope you will join me. Let's pray. I invite you, if you're comfortable doing so, to close your eyes as we begin our prayer. I'm going to guide you through a harmonious coherence of the heart, inviting you to slow your breathing, and if you're comfortable doing so, placing one of your hands in the heart region, because our attention goes where the touch is felt in the body. Settle into that heart space right now, fully arriving in the heart. Slowing your breathing even further. Gently touching one hand to your heart. Allowing your heart to open. To be filled with the light of spirit. To settle into the presence of the divine. To be enfolded in God's loving grace, knowing that it is expressing itself intentionally and perfectly as each one. And knowing that each of us is living our lives within its infinite essence and substance. So we take this moment to bless ourselves. Bless your body, that it be lifted to a new mind. And bless your life, that it be an extension of your mind. Bless your future, that it never be your past. And bless your past, that it turns to wisdom. Bless the adversity in your life, in great faith that it initiates you into greatness, and that you see the hidden meaning behind all things. Bless your soul, that it wake you up and keep you awake. And bless the divine in you, that it moves in you, that it moves through you, and that it moves all around you, creating a new cause in your life. And finally, I want you to give thanks for your new life before it is made manifest, feeling the peace, the joy, the love, the freedom in its fullness, so that your body begins to experience that future now. Knowing that gratitude is the divine signature of that which already is, and now anchoring this experience as together we close in the ever-present now, knowing and experiencing the one divine presence, and fully accepting its movement through my life now, in me, through me, as me. I become aware of the presence of God in every moment, in every situation, condition, relationship, task, every experience, leaving nothing out. And I surrender to it in the deepest gratitude for its presence in my life, allowing it to express in more powerful, more beautiful, more joyful, and grace-filled ways than I have ever known before. I speak this prayer from a place of spiritual authority, fully accepting the power of my word as the word of God, moving through me, for there is only one. I release it now, knowing that the loving and infallible hands of the one are already in action. I surrender into your hands.